Hey everybody, this is my 40-gallon waterfall tank. I guess technically it's a Paludarium, but I think of it as my waterfall tank. And so tonight I'm going to do a water change. I'm going to change out the filter. I'm probably going to do a little bit of gardening while I'm in there. I discovered that I still had some aphids, or I reintroduced aphids not too long ago, so we're going to have a little bit of a root through the foliage there and see if I can find any. Maybe give it a spray down with some soapy water and see if I can kill off anything that I might miss. But that's about it. There's nothing in particular on my mind tonight. I just want to get a little bit of maintenance done to this tank. You can see how low the water level is. For my regular viewers, you can probably tell the flow of water is greatly reduced from what it normally is. That's because I really need to get in there and change the filter, and I need to do a little bit of gardening. Like I said, you can see a few little odds and ends here. Dead flowers need to be deadheaded, and so on and so forth. I'm also going to get in and do a little bit of work down here. I've already got my container of water ready, and what I need to do is pull the sponge filter off of the pump. I have a circulation pump down here, and the line runs up and around and should be pumping water out here. We should have a nice little flow of water. That's what these rocks are for, is to divert the water and create a little bit of splishing and splashing noises and that sort of thing. And so right now we're pretty much stagnant. It's not entirely stagnant. There is a little tiny bit of water dripping and moving in there, but for the most part we are stagnant. But the water is so shallow and I have so much surface area to water depth that it doesn't really matter, even if I don't have a lot of circulation or even any. You see, you just saw a little drip right there. So some water is still moving, tiny little bit, but water is still moving in there. But again, it's so shallow that gas exchange is still able to happen, and just by simple diffusion, the gas is able to move around through that shallow water, and of course the fish can swim around right by the surface and get all the air they need, or I should say all the oxygen they need, not air per se. So I'm not concerned about it in that sense, but it is always nice to have the waterfall flowing, and I don't particularly want it to be a stagnant tank. And of course the pump is still in there pumping and spinning. It's just not actually moving any water because the filter is so clogged. So I'll be getting in there and doing some work. We'll get to have a look at this tank with the water flowing again, and I'm going to try to thin out a little bit of that duckweed that's floating around in there. The water sprite's fine. I want to get some of the duckweed out. That's about all I can think of. I am going to do a water change. This probably doesn't need it. We probably, on this tank, in fact, I will check since I'm going to mention it here. On this tank, I'm probably going to say we are still very much in the orange as far as a nitrate test will go. This will not be above 40 parts per million yet. So, but, you know, rather than topping it off, since I'm in here doing a little bit of work on it anyway, just throwing the hose in there and draining 5 gallons out of it or something and putting fresh water back in will greatly brighten the tank up. I'm going to do a before and after, as I said, but you can get a pretty good idea of how tannin stained the water is just by looking at it like that. So go ahead and call this part your before, and there's your after. So big difference on the water. I don't know, I just ran the big siphon. I didn't do it into buckets where I count the gallons, but I ran it down to about the tank appeared to be roughly half empty. Now, volume-wise, I don't know if it actually was half empty because of all the rocks and substrate and woodwork and everything I've got in there that displaces a lot of water. So just because the water line was 50% from the top to the bottom doesn't necessarily mean we were at 50% volume of water. So take that for whatever it was. That's how much of a water change I did. The water was indeed fairly nitrate free. That's what we're looking at right there. So I'd put that at around 10 parts per million. If only I were able to put that many plants in every one of my tanks, I'd probably have lower nitrates in most of my other tanks as well. I also did the spray for the aphids. That's one of the reasons I did such a large water change. I kind of figured since I had the spray bottle with the soapy water right there and I was doing a water change anyway, it wouldn't hurt. I didn't really see any aphids anywhere. I saw a few that I think were the remains of dead aphids from before, but I didn't want to take any chances again. I had it right there. I didn't see any reason why not to just go ahead and give them a good spray. I still haven't filled in anything in this whole back corner back here. It's all wide open. I'm probably not going to be adding anything else to this. It's already kind of lived longer than I ever really expected it to. I'm really happy with the way it turned out and what it eventually became. You can't really even see the structure behind it from the front, which was always my goal. I wanted it to just be a big mass of growth. I didn't want you to be able to see the rubber structure underneath. But you can almost hardly even see the water. You've got to be in just the right spot even to see the water flowing in the back. And that's usually like down here at an angle. And if you're lucky, you can see little splishes and splashes deep back in there. And that's the waterfall. Well, it's one of the waterfalls. That's the other one. Speaking of which, we did not get a whole lot of increased water flow. So that leads me to believe that the intake screen on the pump, there's a screen in there. I can actually turn it to go for a full flow, and then I can really reduce the flow. I of course keep it at full flow because I need as much water circulation in here as I can get, but it's probably that little screen that you open and close is probably fairly clogged with gunk. It just does that over time. So I'll have to get in there with a little brush and scrape that out next time I'm in there and probably get a lot more significant water flow. But that doesn't really look any different than what we started with. The filter, of course, was filthy, so it really should have made a difference. Now, I also jammed a huge piece of filter material in there. You can clearly see the big white brand new filter in there. I can't imagine that I stuffed so much in there that it's restricting the flow, but I suppose that's possible too. My guess is still going to be with the screen is a little gunked up. I didn't check. I just pulled the old filter out, jammed a new one in, called it good, and got on with doing the gardening aspect of it. So the other thing I will point out is we now have this light turned on, where in the before segment in the video we did not. So that does add a significant difference to the tank. Not a lot to talk about tank-wise. I haven't fed everybody tonight. That's why everybody's going nuts right here at the front, thinking they're about to get their dinner. Can't really think of anything update-wise. I haven't added any fish. I can't think of anybody that's died recently since the last time I've updated about it. I do see a lot of activity from this one Nitrstes snail you can see right here on the side glass, and then the other one you can see the shell right there is dead. So I definitely do not have both of the Nitrstes snails in there, although that's been quite a while since I've had both of them in there anyway. Again, that's not really news. I will point out that when I was cleaning the tank up down here, I think we can move on to this one safely for a moment. I noticed quite a few very small shrimp, very young shrimp. So I don't know how many generations I've had shrimp breeding in this tank. They've been in this tank since back when it was brackish water and had my red-clawed crabs in it. And I have not put any new shrimp in here in a while, and yet I still have very young shrimp swimming around in here. Of course, I've also got all of the little endlers, and I've still got my male cherry barb. I have not, that I've noticed, lost any fish in here. Now, if I lost a little tiny endler's guppy or something, I could easily see the snails making short work over a period of a day or two without me even noticing it. So that's entirely possible. There's a lot of fish in this tank. When you really start getting your eye in and looking around, they're swimming everywhere. And if I moved this plant out of the way, you'd see a lot of them. And if we come up into this end of the tank where it's a lot more shallow, you can actually see quite a lot of them. They swim around everywhere in this tank now. I really enjoy it. I will point out that I came in and I noticed a big wet spot on the floor, and I did not know where it was coming from. It took me a minute to figure out when I first got the filter changed. I'm not sure how it was sitting, but one of the leaves from this must have been up in here, and the water was flowing on it and across and right down onto the floor. So I was able to get all that moved away, and now we don't have to worry about that. The other little minor catastrophe I had was I bumped into my geranium while I was getting the filter out. It used to sit on a little piece of Lexan, and then I had the geranium sitting up here actually rather than down here. And when I bumped it, it fell. So let's see how long it takes me to get all that cleaned up. My guess is going to be that it's going to take a long time, but we'll see. So that's about all I can think of. That's my sort of impromptu video for the night. Again, I didn't really have a whole lot on my mind. It's been a busy day. I just kind of busted in here to do something real quick, and I figured while I was doing the work on the tank, I could kind of shoot a video of it and kill two birds with one stone. So thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss anything else I got coming up. You never know what it's going to be with me. And then don't forget, of course, this is my waterfall tank. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you real soon in the next one.